Today, we're doing something a little bit different, still focused on leadership, but how we could use leadership to actually attract opportunities. And these opportunities could be customers and clients, they could be employees for your team, or they could be partnerships and job opportunities if you're just looking for a way to grow your career and actually get different roles. So back in June, I think it was, and if you weren't on the session, go back and check it out in the Learn Worlds portal. But we have about how to design your value and how to kind of think about your personal branding from a unique perspective. Like, how do you package up what you've done in your career to be able to either market that for a better job and to sell yourself to your superiors, or to market that for business opportunities if you're doing consulting. So today we're going to get into how do you actually communicate that value once you've kind of realized that value and packaged it up. So if you weren't on that session, go back and check it out. And that will kind of play into what we're talking about today. So at the end of this, you're going to have 3 principles for you to keep in mind as you're promoting yourself and creating content, and then a process for actually getting results around that. So whether you're trying to attract that better job or top talent or your ideal clients, the same process and principles work for all of that. So this is generally, like, I've done a lot of experimentation over the last 2.5 years, and this is the process I've used to get startup clients that want to hire me as a fractional CTO. I've used it to unintentionally get job offers. I still get recruiters hitting me up over LinkedIn DM like, hey, we've got a job for you. Are you interested? But since I'm doing my own thing, that's not something I'm interested in. And then I've also used it to get a lot of inbound interest from developers that are looking for jobs. They see me like talking about this stuff, and that resonates with them, and so they reach out to see if there's any opportunities. And then also use it for spreading the word about tech leaders and getting people to want to enroll in the program. So it's worked for lots of different things. It really is just about attracting opportunity, filtering out the stuff that you're not interested in, and getting people to raise their hand, so to speak, for the people that you do want to talk to based on what you value and what you want to do. So, thought leadership is kind of a meme at this point, but the reality is that it's what people want and need. People want to follow the thoughts and the ideas of somebody who is successful and who has done it before, and somebody who values the things they value. And so thought leadership is a thing, even though it gets kind of talked down on and kind of made fun of in a way. People talk about the TED Talk thought leaders and the gurus, but the reality is thought leadership is something that resonates with people. And this is a way for you to kind of demonstrate your thought leadership to attract the right people. And this also becomes like a precursor to public speaking. I think there's a lot of people in the program that want to be better at public speaking, whether that's like talking at conferences or just being able to inspire the people that you're working with through what you say. And so you can't be a good speaker without being a good writer first. And so we're going to go over some of the things you can do to get better and practice that skill of writing. We all write code all the time, but this is about kind of writing some of the things that you believe and value in your job. So let's get into the actual principles. And if you guys have thoughts or questions, by all means, speak up. This is what I found to work, but I think there's also lots of ways to skin a cat, so to speak. And you may have other things that work as well. So the principles I found that are really useful when it comes to attracting opportunity is authority, opportunity, and consistency. So authority, meaning you're able to demonstrate that you know what you're doing and you do good work, you ship good products, or you help people get their goals, whatever it is that you're productizing, you have to be able to demonstrate the authority in that. And the benefit of authority is that it gives the people you're speaking to a high level of certainty. And certainty, as we've talked about, is like the number one human emotion. Is we all crave that certainty. And so when you can demonstrate your authority, that shows a high degree of certainty that you're going to be able to help them in what they're doing. And it also reduces the risk. So when it comes to selling people or getting people to buy in, even just to your plans or your strategy or your idea, if you're, let's say, re-architecting something, you need to get buy-in from the people that are actually doing the work or maybe collaborating on it with you. The more you can demonstrate authority, the lower the risk is, and the more likely they will trust kind of your plan there. So authority is extremely important. The second principle is opportunity. You need to be able to show that working with them is going to help them and create value for them. So there's an opportunity for them to surround themselves, to be around you, whether it's hiring you or putting you on the team or buying your services, or when it comes to developers wanting to work with you, they want to know that they're going to grow their career when they work with you. And then the third principle, and then for opportunity, what that does is also show high certainty. So helps people with that core emotion of certainty. It demonstrates that when you do this right, that they're going to have a high level of certainty that you will provide opportunity for them. And it also shows high value. So kind of the same, another way of thinking of opportunity, but that just being in your presence is going to bring value to their life. And then the third thing is consistency. This is the third principle. It doesn't matter how authoritative you are or how much opportunity you can share and spread. If you're not consistent in how you talk about this stuff, you lose a lot of the benefits of it. So compounding benefits of being consistent is hard to overstate. The more consistent you are in being a thought leader, the more reach you get. So if we're talking about social media specifically, you get compounding reach. Like if you are posting every single day, every day your reach grows because of that consistency. So your audience size will grow, and being consistent to the people that are reading or watching or paying attention to what you're talking about, it again helps them with the certainty, because people are attracted to the consistency. Someone who's dependable, stable, not just in their work, but also like how they promote themselves. That consistency is really important. So 3 principles are authority, opportunity, and consistency. And when you set up your own system around this process, you want to make sure you're getting through those 3 principles in what you're doing. So regardless of what your outcomes are, what your goals are, whether it's attracting top talent or attracting your ideal clients, or even if you're at an existing company and you want to, let's say, get a promotion or move to a different organization within the company, it all comes down to sharing your thoughts and what your overall like beliefs and philosophy and like ways of working are. So I've got some documentation that I'll be sharing, which is really, it's like a playbook for how to write content. And this is kind of like my style that I've developed. And you'll be able to develop your own style, but these are lots of things that you can kind of use to start forming your own kind of voice and style. One of the best ways I would say I started doing this too is just like copying somebody else that is clearly working for them. So you just kind of mimic them, and then eventually you start to develop your own style and aesthetic around it. So copying somebody else is a great way to start. So I'll share that later after it gets a little more edited down, but this will help you kind of come up with more of what I'm talking about here. So now that we get into the actual process, the first step in the process is to identify the best channel for who you're trying to communicate to. So this could be Slack channels that you're already in, niche communities that you're already a part of. This could be more generally social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. They all have different benefits and drawbacks, and I'll get into those in a second. We're going to do like deeper dives into each specific social network and future entrepreneurial engineer sessions. But when it comes to demonstrating your value, it's helpful to start with like, where do you want to demonstrate it? You know, do you want to be screaming down a dark alley, or do you want to be like on the main intersection of town where more people are going to see and hear what you've got to say? So if we get into Facebook as the first one, this is where I started, by the way. And this is helpful for a few reasons. One big reason was that when I started doing this, I felt that I needed to be covert, meaning I had a day job. I was focused on consulting for just one company. It was kind of like I was ending my time at Digit. I was beginning consulting for Walmart, but I felt like if I was going to get my business going on the side, I needed to do it kind of sneaky, so to speak. I was worried, I was scared that somebody at either Digit or Walmart would see what I'm doing and feel that I wasn't dedicated to the main thing I was doing with them. So I've since learned that that's actually a limiting belief, that there's value in me doing this for them. Like, it was actually beneficial, but at the time I felt like this was a good way to get the ball rolling without doing it so blatantly. And Facebook was perfect for this because it's not where people are typically talking about professional stuff. You know, most of the people I was worried about were hanging out on LinkedIn and Twitter. And so Facebook felt like kind of off the beaten path, but there's still a ton of great opportunity on Facebook. Like to this day, the lion's share of revenue that I've generated over the last 2.5 years has come from Facebook. So I'm now focusing on different channels like LinkedIn and Twitter, but Facebook still is just paying off even to this day. So Facebook is really, I would say, underrated, because a lot of people in tech look down on it, think that it's over. But there are tons of really successful people on Facebook if you know the right places to look. It does tend to skew older and non-technical. But if we're trying to help people, like let's say you want to be a fractional CTO, you want to be looking for non-technical entrepreneurs because they need the technical assistance. So it's actually a great place to go. Like, most technical people would think, where are the tech folks? Well, they would go to LinkedIn and Twitter. But if you want to get business as a fractional CTO or some other kind of consultants, go where everybody isn't. Go where the tech folks are not hanging out, because then there's less competition. And just your posts about this, your content as you're putting it out there just stands out. Like, the signal to noise is much better. And I think one of the best places when it comes to Facebook, like, how there's a whole strategy on this, and we'll get into this on a future session, but generally speaking, Facebook groups are one of the best places to go. There are so many Facebook groups. I had never used a Facebook group until 2020, like late in the year 2020. And there are just so many groups on really niche topics, but they're huge. So like, one that I love to frequent is SaaS Growth Hacks. There's like 22,000 people in there, and it's all about how to make your SaaS, your software as a service, grow. And there's a lot of people that are wannabes in there. There are a lot of people that are currently doing stuff. So it's not all just tire kickers. There are legitimate business folks in there. And there's a lot of pretty highly networked people. There's VCs lurking in these groups. One of my best clients to date, he's a venture capitalist in Sweden. I met him in SaaS Growth Hacks. And there's lots of people that you wouldn't maybe expect in these groups, but they're there. And it's a lot easier to do covert promotion in these groups because you have to be a member of the group to even see it. And so I could post in this group when I was just getting started. And at the time, it got me over that limiting belief of who's going to see this I don't want them to see it. Because I was like, the odds of them being in this group of only 22,000 people, which is more than enough to work with, the odds of them being in that group are very small. So I felt that I could just go all out, not hold back at all. And it led to getting lots of clients through this process. So Facebook groups are great for just getting results, but they're especially good for if you're trying to be a little more covert and under the radar as you're just getting started. And then the other kind of quick tip beyond a deeper dive into Facebook marketing is don't use groups, but don't use a business page. A lot of times people are like, oh, I'm starting a business. Let me start a Facebook business page. But you actually want to do all of this off of your personal profile. Because at the end of the day, and this is a common theme through every single one of these channels, at the end of the day, people buy from people. And so it's a lot better as an individual when you're getting started to just demonstrate your individuality. Like you're just a person, you're available, but you're just a person and they can see other sides of your life. So you never want to really just purely focus on the business. The more you can kind of pull back the curtain and show you're a person with interests outside of just what you're good at professionally, that really resonates to people. So using your personal page instead of a company page is the way you want to do it.
I'm about to do the inverse, where I'm going to take the plunge and heavily promote my Kickstarter on LinkedIn starting next week.
Cool.
So I am going to try your advice in reverse, where
I love it.
I'm bringing, because I agree with what you're saying, that like you are the whole person.
Yep.
And there is no getting Bill Bolden, the fractional CTO, like some narrow lane, without also getting Bill Bolden, the entirety of who that person is. And that person is a musician. And I don't always post on LinkedIn, go listen to my latest track and stuff. That's not the place for it. But this is a big and ambitious undertaking. And so I'm going to be asking people to back, or at least raising awareness about the product on LinkedIn, even though that's not the place for it. And I'm going to see how that goes. I'll get back to you with results.
Awesome. I think it's a great idea because it will stand out. It's like, how many times have I seen a Kickstarter for a music project on LinkedIn? 0 times. And I'm not saying I see every post, but it's not common. And so I love that you're going to do that, Bill. I think it's super smart. And then, yeah, people will be able to see there's more things going on. And let's say they like music too. They might, even though you're promoting the music project, they might actually want to hire you for your other services because they're like, I'm going to really get along with this person, Bill, because they like music too. And they like creative endeavors beyond just technical stuff. And especially because in the tech world, so many tech people are like so focused on tech. This is a great way to show, like, if you have interest beyond just technology, it shows you've got so much more to your personality, and you're more personal in some ways. So I love that idea, Bill. Very curious to hear how that goes for you. We could go right into LinkedIn. Actually, I think I was going to say, on that note, what is good? What is LinkedIn good for? It's great for attracting talent because lots of times people that are looking for jobs are obviously on LinkedIn, but it is a more formal environment. So anything that's not businessy really stands out. Like one example are like shit posting, like, memes and jokes and stuff like that. Ironic posts, sarcasm, that stuff stands out hugely because it's so different from the buttoned up businessy type stuff that you typically see on LinkedIn. Very reserved, like nobody's sharing too much personal information. So I love what Bill's going to do, where it's certainly not a shit post, but it's something different from formal, like HR approved posts. Not that it wouldn't be HR approved, but it's a different topic. And so when it comes to marketing, it's all about being different. So the more you can stand out, you're competing for attention as people are doom scrolling all day long. It's like, how can you stand out? And so anything like that is going to be really good on LinkedIn, I think. LinkedIn is also a lot easier to show authority, I think, because people can click through to your profile, see, your vast history and professional experience. So it is easier to demonstrate authority without writing about it specifically. But it is harder to find discussions. And that's something that is really easy for Facebook, is finding discussions. And I'll get into this here in a little bit, but discussions are how you can get even more visibility into your thought leadership, joining existing conversations and discussions rather than having to create them all yourself. So LinkedIn is a little bit harder to find those kinds of discussions, but the more you engage, the more consistent you are about posting on there, the more you will be fed those kinds of related discussions and conversations by the algorithm. Twitter is basically the water cooler where tech hangs out. And that can be good, but not everyone is necessarily there to do business. So it's kind of a different thing to be aware of. I think blatant selling and marketing yourself can sometimes be looked down upon because a lot of people aren't there for that. But if you just focus on demonstrating your knowledge and helping people, that's a great way to market yourself without being too pushy and salesy. Twitter also is a little bit harder to find discussions, but the more you engage, the more you kind of look up different hashtags and topics, the easier it is to find that. But Facebook groups, to me, are the easiest way to find existing conversations to help people and demonstrate your authority and opportunity and consistency. Twitter is a lot more kind of casual, like networking, more than like lead generation necessarily. That's another note on Twitter. Instagram. Instagram, I have not really cracked the nut, I would say, on how to generate business directly through Instagram, but it is a great place for you to show more of your life and some of the things outside of tech and demonstrate kind of your whole self. And I know that a lot of the people that I do work with also follow me on Instagram, but I didn't necessarily get them through Instagram. So the deal or the opportunity may be sourced or attributed to a different channel. Like I met them on LinkedIn or met them on Facebook, but they now follow me on Instagram. And before they started to do business with me, they got to see my life. They got to see I'm a dad. They got to see I like mountain biking. They got to see these different hobbies that I have, to kind of see like, yes, this is a whole person. They have some things I'm interested in as well. And that just makes the sale that much easier. So Instagram is a good place to showcase that sort of thing. Because at the end of the day, people buy people, not products and services. And then I'll just kind of mention TikTok. It's not something that I'm really putting too much focus in. And from what I've been able to see, it's a good way to grow numbers in your audience, but not necessarily easy to monetize and actually drive people towards your funnel. So it can be a good way to reach people. And what I found, it's actually helpful for when rather than creating my own TikToks, I'm leaving comments on TikToks in the space and engaging on those posts that already have tons of followers. And then based on the reaction to my comments, I create content around that. So I almost use TikTok as like a way to get ideas and validate topics that resonate with people. I've had a few comments that got like 200 likes. And I was like, okay, there's something here. Like what I said here resonates. And this was one where I said, selling myself up front makes everything else easier. And this was in the context of like a client call. So by sort of demonstrating really what we're talking about here today, authority, opportunity, and consistency, by demonstrating that to someone up front, it makes influence a lot easier later down the road. So it's kind of meta, but like that comment was very resonated with people, and they felt, that either they agreed with it or wanted to know more about it. And so then I'm able to create content around that. And it's sort of a way to do an MVP of a concept or idea. And then you can write out a whole newsletter email about it, or you can do a whole long form post for LinkedIn about it. So it gives you some ideas around like what content to double down more on. So I found that that's one way TikTok is helpful for me. So now that you've kind of got your channel figured out, you know where you want to talk about your value. Now you need to do something with that. So you've got people's attention, you've got eyes on your posts, maybe you're getting some likes, some comments, you're creating some discussion. After that, you want to actually have a funnel and somewhere for them to go. And so, you know, this is just a classic like marketing funnel that has a series of steps that some amount of people fall out of. But at the bottom of the funnel, you end up with people who are qualified, meaning they're people that you want to work with based on what you value and what's important. They're a good fit, whether it's people you're trying to attract to hire them for your development team, or it's clients. You don't want, you know, clients from hell. You want your ideal client, or some other sort of customer. So at the bottom of this funnel, those people fall out of it when you've set the funnel up properly. And the general funnel goes like this. You create, you comment or reply back to bigger account posts, other people's content. And when you reply back to that, that will grow your following. So the first step is to grow your following, right? If you're just posting, you're just kind of shouting out into the void. If nobody's actually connected with you or following you, it's hard to get much value out of those posts. So you need to start by growing your following. And the way to do that is not posting your own posts. It's actually replying back and commenting on other people's posts. Because when you share your thoughts on somebody else's piece of content, like your perspective or your hot take, maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, whatever it is, try to add more value beyond what they've said. Other people will see your comment and be like, whoa, this person's got something to say. I like that. And then they'll click through your profile. And when you've got your profile primed and ready in the way that it needs to be, then they can do something. They can follow you, they can message you, whatever it is. So the first step in all of this, before you even start making your own posts, is to just engage with other people's content. And that will get more eyes on your profile and get more of your audience growing. So the first step is to comment on others. And this is something that you never stop doing. Like, you know, as part of the consistency principle, you need to make sure you're doing this regularly. And this is something I have to constantly remind myself of. Like when I take a day off, I do this 5 days a week, just to give you some thoughts. I'm not doing this 7 days a week, but every business day, I have to have time on my calendar to remember to do this, because the tendency, even after doing this for 2.5 years, is to not do it. But I remember, and every time I do this, when I get more engagement and stuff, it reinforces like the value of doing this. You don't have to do a lot. You don't have to spend all day on social media replying and commenting, but I carve out 2 times a day, in the morning and the evening, or late afternoon. And it takes about 30 minutes. So it doesn't have to be a huge time investment to do this. So to get new followers and to grow your audience, you got to comment on other content. But then it comes down to, how do you satisfy the people who are following you? They're looking for something. So how do you give them what they want? And how do you warm people up to what you're doing, what you're selling, whether it's a job that you're trying to fill on your team, you're trying to attract a certain type of developer, or you're trying to find that ideal client, or you're trying to get attention from recruiters for a new job. Doesn't matter what your goal or objective is, this all works the same. So you want to be creating posts on your own wall and your own feed that supports what's important to you. So this can be your approach to building apps. This could be stuff about your favorite tech stack. This could be lessons learned. We'll get into this on a future session where we can talk about how to generate ideas for content to write about. But this is where you want to do this stuff, this longer form content. It's on your own page. And that will warm people up who are already following you. But again, remember, posting on your own page won't attract new people unless it goes viral or something, which this whole process is around how to get results without having to hope and pray for going viral. because we've had some popular posts, but nothing that I would say is truly viral. But I haven't done the breakdown. I should probably do this of like, what is the dollars generated versus number of followers? Like the dollar per follower is high. Like I don't care about having 50,000 followers if most of them are not buying what I've got to sell. So I'm quite happy with sort of the ratio of like dollars generated to number of audience size. So when you're really clear with your content, it will filter out the people that are maybe not going to buy what you're selling, and it does drive that metric up. This is a place to, I mentioned lessons learned, beliefs, ways of working, common mistakes, like things you've seen others make. That's a great topic. And there are lots of tools that you can use to automate posting. So like I actually don't post on any of my social media pages, even though it probably looks like I do. We've got a system that Joy helps manage where it's either automated with a tool or we've got a virtual assistant based in the Philippines, working for $5 an hour, which is good money there, but obviously very cost effective here. And so I don't have to worry about like taking time out of my day to post because there's a system for it. And then the other part of sort of the daily posting of content is to continue engaging with people you're connected with. So not necessarily the bigger accounts, but the people that are following you, you want to engage back with their content, like their posts, comment back. Again, it just warms up people who are in your funnel already. The more you are engaging with their content, the more you'll be top of mind for them. And when it comes to time for them to actually buy, whether it's a fractional CTO deal or they want to hire you or they want to work for you, you're top of mind because you've been engaging with their posts throughout the week. And then the other part of this is how you can get outside attention to your posts. And one way to do this is to actually share your posts with other people in your life and ask them to engage. So you're actually like messaging, like you're sharing a post in another platform. Like let's say you're posting in a Slack group, a link to the post that you put on LinkedIn. This is going to bring off-platform traffic to your post, which actually indicates to the social networks that what you have is very popular because people are coming to it sort of organically. Even though you sent them the link, they're not just relying on the algorithm to see the content. And so that becomes a signal and a data point for the algorithm to show it to more people. So one thing we're going to be doing soon in Tech Leaders is actually creating our own, they call these growth pods. And so this is like this group, this community, this mastermind is a growth pod, and it can function as this. And what that means is when people are making posts, they can share their posts in the Slack channel, and then we can all engage on those posts and give each other some sort of traction and engagement. And it helps the people who are making the posts because they get additional likes or comments. But when you like and comment on other people's posts, you have to remember that that's going to get more eyes on you too, because other people will see your comments and then they'll click through to see who this person is, you. And that's another chance to bring someone into your world and into your ecosystem. So we'll be rolling more of that out in the weeks to come, but that's going to be a way for us to kind of support each other, get some initial traction on our posts, and boost it in the algorithm so more of your ideal opportunity comes to you, whether it is clients or developers to work for you or job offers from recruiters. Once you've got kind of the post going, the next step is to actually DM people. And DM is where you go from somebody who's maybe noticed your information and your posts online to actually wanting to get them to book a call with you or take that next step, whatever it is. The easiest place to start, it can be very hard to sell conversationally over DM. It can be done, but it's a bit harder to start with. So I would suggest what you want to do is eventually just get people to book a call with you. And I like to use Calendly. There's lots of great tools around this, but Calendly is a great option. So every day I'm sending DMs, and sometimes it's following up with people that I've spoken with in the past. Sometimes it's new people, new followers that have come into my ecosystem of content. And I don't start by like, hey, book a call. We'll go into the scripts you can use and the specific nuances of how to get people to take action over DM. But it really starts with just getting to know the person. Because at the end of the day, what I found works best is not a transactional approach to selling yourself, but actually more relationship based, getting to know people, letting them get to know you before you ever like ask them to do anything. So it's just really about connection first. So that's really the goal of the DM. There's lots of tools you can do to automate DMs. But to start, all you have to do is just make a goal to send 5 DMs a day to anybody in your network, just to generate conversations. The more conversations you have, the more ideas you get for content to write about, because people will ask you questions, or they will, say other little bits and pieces that you can latch onto and say, oh, I hadn't thought of it like that. I'm going to write a post about it. And then, eventually you're able to then, when you have the right opening, prompt them to book a call with you to talk more about something. So through that conversation, also, you're able to vet them with questions and find out, are they a right fit for what you're wanting to do? You can kind of ask them where they're at. Maybe they're the wrong kind of client. They don't have funding, or they're too big of a company because you want to focus on early stage, or maybe you're trying to get a new promotion, a new role, and you're able to find out what the salary is, and you know that they're not paying as much as you need or want. So there are all these questions that you could use to qualify the person over DM before you actually want to get them on a call. And so this is kind of like one of the final steps in the funnel of going from cold stranger, someone who's never come across you before, to then qualifying them as someone who would be a good fit for whatever it is you're selling, whether it's yourself in a job, or a boss to other people that might want to work for you, or clients that would want to hire you. So that's the first main part of the funnel. The last step is to actually like close the best. And this could be best client, best talent, best customer, whatever it is. There's a whole process around selling and following up that comes after this marketing process. But I want to start there, or stop there for now, and kind of open it up for discussion now to see if anybody has other thoughts around what's worked for them when it comes to generating opportunity and showcasing your value, or if people have questions about the specifics of how those things work.
Do you have a minute for me to be extremely vulnerable?
Absolutely, please. That's what we're here for.
So I'm going to share a don't. And this is probably my greatest professional regret. But about a decade ago, I got some really bad advice and took it, and did a lot of things to artificially increase engagement, like posting and reposting memes and acquiring followers and following trending hashtags and all this stuff. And I built up one of my Twitter accounts to a very large following. And it was fruitless and thankless. The people were there for the hashtag content, not for me. It's my greatest professional regret And one of the whole reasons that I threw out my old artist name and rebranded as a new artist starting from scratch was I actually wanted to run away from my previous fan base of people who knew me as that person who shares memes and trending hashtags on Twitter, all this fake stuff. And I wanted to very explicitly advise all the people in this group to not make the same mistake I did. Don't ever do things that are gimmicky or not who you are to artificially boost engagement. Because if you play crappy games, you win crappy prizes. That there you have it. That's actually my greatest professional regret of all of them.
That's a great tip. I'm sure that must have been a hard decision to make, or a hard kind of realization to make when you put all that effort and time into building it up to realize it's not going to yield what you want it to.
Yeah, to look at this account and see that it had so many followers, but like they weren't real people, they weren't engaging. It didn't lead to success. They weren't interested in me. They didn't care about me. And then turning my back on that account entirely and deleting it and saying, no more, I'm never going to artificially seek engagement again.
That's a great tip. I think if the followers aren't generating dollars, they're kind of pointless if you're trying to use social media for business. Some people use it just for dopamine or for fun, and that's fine, and a great way to maybe that they would have been happy with that kind of account. But for what we're doing here, this is for professional purposes, and I will always take lower numbers for higher conversion.
Right. Now I have 600 followers on Twitter, and I'm very happy because I know who each one of those 600 people is.
Awesome. And they know who you are, probably, if you've played it the way that you would want. So it's like you've been able to share who Bill really is, and the connection is going to be much higher. So you focused on the relationship angle rather than the transactional, which is just pure, like, you give them content, they give you engagement, likes, but it can be hard to move past that. That's a great lesson learned, Bill. Thanks for sharing that.
I'm trying to remember back to because I've been following like your tech leader stuff for a while, Todd, just personally interested and see what you're up to and everything. And it was kind of interesting because I always knew like, oh, it seemed like I'm like, feel like he's kind of talking to me, not specifically, but like I feel like I'm a good alignment here. But at some point it kind of like weirdly switched over from like keeping an eye on to like, oh yeah, actually this, like, it kind of, I like got stuck at the very beginning of the funnel for a while. And I kind of like, after a while I was like, wait a second, why am I not moving forward? And then here we are and stuff. But I think to your point about consistency, it's almost like instead of like a battering ram going through the door, it was just like a little drill that you just turn every day, like a little bit more, and then eventually it gets through the door. Because I think that consistency was, like you're saying, keeping top of mind and all that. It just sort of at one point, like, little switch flipped. It was like, oh, I should probably actually engage and figure this out. So I think that was a really good like takeaway, at least for me, is just the long haul aspect of it. But the thing I don't want to say struggling with, but this is for me, like, kind of personally, is I don't have anything that I'm really trying to sell right now. Like I kind of feel I'm not trying to do like fractional CTO stuff right this second. I don't have like a SaaS, entrepreneurial idea that I'm pursuing. Just sort of in the more standard 9-to-5 kind of career ladder path right now. And the thing I'm thinking about, I'm curious if anybody has any thoughts on, is like what, how much effort or what kind of effort is appropriate right now to sort of plant some seeds that I might not necessarily need to grow right now, but like, I guess, are there things I should be doing to start building that authority or demonstrating value, even if it's just sort of passive? And like, I don't want to have something come up and then wish that I had 9 months of backlog of slow, steady content for people to kind of organically look into. Like you were saying, getting your name out there, people start going like, who's this guy? I don't want them to just see a wall of random stupid crap I've been posting on Twitter. I'm trying to think of like stuff I could be doing now to sort of build up a steady state of demonstrating value. So I don't know if you have any tips for like how to apply some of this when you don't really have like a end destination in mind, but there's still benefits to demonstrating value and building that authority, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think companies are starting to realize the value of having prominent people on their staff. So people that have followings and have more of a thought leadership kind of brand out there. It used to be like that was kind of a liability, like, oh, we don't want people that are putting all this focus into their personal brands because they're not doing the work. But then they've realized how much it pays off, because you'll start to get speaking engagement requests, like, come talk at a conference, or you get inbound people wanting to work for you because they know you work at a company that they think is cool. So companies are starting to realize, the smart ones are realizing the value in this. And so I would say, like, you being a thought leader, doesn't matter if you're selling anything, just sharing your philosophies, what you think, what are your opinions about software. There's lots of opinions to be had. And a lot of people, I'd say the majority of people, are too scared to share what they really think. So the more you can put your neck out there and share, the better it'll work for you, because there's so much more signal then. So I would say you don't have to have something that you're selling right now. And so maybe you don't care about the bottom of the funnel too much, but building the body of work of like what you believe, like how you should approach building software, or one way to think to generate ideas, and we'll get into this on the actual content generation session, but like, talk to your past self, write for like what you wished you'd known 2 years ago. And that can attract people that are sort of on the same sort of journey, but not as far along as you. So I would say, like, start now, start yesterday, even if you're not necessarily selling anything yet. Because I started doing this before I even knew what my offer really was. Like, I was like, I'm going to use this to grow my business. And the business and offer has changed a lot over the 2.5 years. So it was just about sharing myself. And that's what attracted that venture capitalist, as I said, is I was putting in content about like growth metrics to watch out for, like SaaS type stuff, how to find a non-technical, or how to find a technical co-founder. It was literally everything I had an opinion on. I was just kind of writing about all the things I'd learned over the last few years, and that's started attracting. Eventually, like the client basically went through and liked. One day I had like 15 hearts on my posts in this group, and then a DM from this person. So I was like, oh, this person found all my posts and it resonated. And then he's like, I have to reach out to this person because I liked all this content going back months and months and months. So I would say it's never too early to start, even if you don't have anything to sell. And in fact, you want to give before you ask for the sell anyway. So it's a perfect time to like share your wisdom. If you think about past Ryan, what would past Ryan like to know?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the content generation stuff more specifically, but I think to start, I'll just set up kind of like you budgeted time way to chime in on other people's content to start. I just need to sort of set it as like a little, almost like walking the dog, just something you have to do. And I'll try and really challenge myself to start.
It's a good way to do it. And
vocal,
it is,
I guess.
Yeah, it is a muscle you have to build up. So like starting now before you need it is a great idea, because there's no pressure necessarily to like get the outcome that you ultimately want. Like getting in the habit of it and building that muscle, it's perfect time for it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's motivating.
Awesome.
Especially the giving before you sell thing. That makes a lot of sense. It's kind of I'm thinking about all the people that I've thought that's a strategy that universally seems to work, or even just like I was talking about when you join Tech Leaders. It's like I've gotten a lot out of these newsletters just passively watching, and sort of escalates.
Yep. And going back to what you said, like we've known each other for a long time, long before I was doing my own thing, and my approach is to really use a magnetic. Like I wasn't sending everybody I worked with like really hard sales messages like, hey, this is the thing, like click here to buy. It was more like just keep beating the drum of what is important, and then it resonated with you, and then eventually you reached out. Like that to me is like the ultimate representation of like the funnel, is like you have people coming to you. You don't even have to do the chasing. Like a lot of people approach sales as like a pursuit. And the more you can create your content to be magnetic, it makes the sales a lot easier. And eventually, yeah, people will reach out like you did. So I'm glad you did. And, that's kind of like evidence that this works in a lot of ways. So see, Jim shared something here. Cool. Jim's starting to get his content creation going.
Yeah, a little bit.
Awesome. Got the newsletter.
Yeah, I've been sharing that on LinkedIn the last 3 weeks and a few other places that I've got a community of people that I rap with, talk with. I haven't quite pushed it out to some other Facebook groups, but that's another thing that other groups I've been in will speak to, is really engaging in Facebook groups to at least put your messaging out there. Of course, you got to be, at least with a few of them, you got to be pretty careful about what it is and how you're promoting yourself, because it's easy to get kicked out. Of course, there's some you probably don't care if you're kicked out of, but then it's kind of like, what's the value you're bringing if you're getting kicked out? So it's an interesting game, to say the least.
Yeah, you can always kind of just Hail Mary and promote and hope for the best. But I talked about this a little bit earlier, Jim, before you hopped on, I think. But the more you can have your own profile primed, like if you have this link in your bio or whatever, all you have to do is look wise in the group and people will click through and click.
Totally.
And then
I
sign
totally
up.
agree with that.
Yeah, you almost don't even
headache,
have to promote it aside from your own knowledge.
Yeah, the headache that I've always had is I still have the day job, which is still kind of problematic for all this social media posting strategy, to a degree of how much do you update your LinkedIn profile to say like, hey, I'm a fractional CTO. Like can't probably get away with that just yet, as an example, right? So that's been the headache for this.
So I was in the same boat. I mentioned this earlier too in the call, but I had to be covert when I started this because I still had a day job. So I felt like in a lot of ways it was actually kind of a limiting belief, because at the end of the day, employers want the best people to work there, and that involves having a platform online nowadays. But I would say it is still a valid concern to say I need to do this covertly. Facebook groups, I think, are the best place to start when you're having to do it kind of under the radar, because the odds of people being in there who you don't want to maybe see your posts, like your boss is probably not in SaaS growth hacks and that sort of thing. So you can be as open as you want in there. The odds of somebody seeing it are very small because it isn't a sort of a private group. So yeah, Facebook groups, I think, are one of the best places to start if you're in that position.
Yeah, totally. I would agree. And LinkedIn is not that. LinkedIn is very walled off. Like you got to be really intentional about how you're posting things there, and things will show up in ways that are uncomfortable if you're having a bad day.
I got to drop off for a noon. Thank you, everybody,
Cool.
for your time today.
See you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah, me too, actually. But this is good.
Cool.
Sorry I was a little late, but I'll go listen to the first 30 or so, 40 minutes. That was good.
Cool. Yeah, it's all about developing your influence online and how to attract opportunity so you don't have to chase it as hard. So there'll be more sessions on this. This was really just kind of like the overview of like principles and process. But at the end of the day, it's never too early to start. So
you mentioned at the beginning like a different session back in June or something.
Yeah, so that one was called, I think it was June 22nd or something, Troy. I think it was the second one. Maybe you could drop what the title of that was called.
I can go dig into it.
One of the earliest sessions. And we'll have more on this too, because it is like it could take a while to really like think through and distill what your unique value is when you can do so many things. But yeah, you really want to kind of land on something that very few other people have done. So like, what is the culmination of, it's like the Venn diagram of just Ryan in the middle. And so how you can create that for yourself, it just makes it that much more popular.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I like hearing when Jim was talking, it's like I suspect a lot of the hard part of all this is not I mean, I could be wrong, but not so much the mechanics of like which media, which outlet channel has the best, all the nuances of like Facebook versus this and that. It's probably more like, oh, actually, what do I even have to offer? I feel like that seems
Yeah.
like the part that's probably extremely difficult. And I feel like, like Joy mentioned on Slack, like the putting time aside to do deep work and reflecting on kind of the week and everything. And it's like, I feel like I need to actually just sit down and sort of like stare the bear in the eyes and just be like, oh yeah, what am I even doing here? Like, what is in that Venn diagram, and just do some reflection about that. Cause you can have posts all day long, but if you're not really saying anything, then like, I guess what's the point? So I think, yeah, I got some good stuff to think about, and some more, I'll look back at that other one. And I'm really trying to think like, what do I even have to share about, and not having to have the answer, I guess, before being willing to start too, probably like just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks seems like it's part of it, or just like you said, conversations, generating ideas. But yeah,
one of the easiest things to start with is like lessons learned. Like, what did you learn this day, this week? And it's almost like a learning in public, a build in public kind of thing. So it doesn't have to be like some sort of like Nobel Prize winning concept. It can just be like, I learned this thing. It could be really minutia about like some technical library, or it could be starting a new project. Like, I learned that, whatever, like it's hard to make one up on the fly, but like anything that you learn, like I have a daily review at the end of the day where I write down things I learned and one big question I have, and that becomes a source of content generation.
Cool.
So journaling is a great way to get to the bottom of this stuff.
Yeah, I was actually going to say too, because this is like a tangential-ish thing, but it's like throughout the year, I have like this list in my Notion of like small wins, I call it, which all little stuff you forget about, or kind of like what we started doing on Slack a little bit too. But just, it's helpful because there'll be some time where I like do a small win, but then I completely forget about it when it comes time for performance reviews or whatever. And then I think of it as like ammo to like counteract self-doubt and imposter stuff later on when you look back at this note that you've accumulated throughout the year. You're like, wow, look at all this. Oh yeah, I forgot I helped them. I forgot I did that. I logged on at 10 p.m. and helped restart whatever. Like all those little small wins. It's nice to kind of rack it up. And I think I might start a separate list for like lessons learned. Yeah, same kind of thing you're saying. Just kind of accruing that stuff so it doesn't just get lost in the ether and then sitting there at a blank page. So yeah,
totally. I do something called props and ops. I do it for myself, but also people on the team. So like being able to give props, and then what are opportunities?
Oh, nice.
So it's cool. Like opportunities to grow and do better in some way. Like if it's an area of weakness for somebody, that's an op. And then a prop is like something they did well. So you could do this for yourself. You could do this for people on your team, but that creates a source of content too.
As long as it's got a rhymey, catchy name, that's always critical.
I'm a sucker for that.
Yeah, click it or ticket. It works. I've always buckled up just because of that. So
exactly.
Cool.